All right, and I'm going to make a joke right off the bat because I don't know the answer, and I'm going to take a shot. Husband and wife, family, what do we got going on here?
Husband and wife.
Yes. Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm going to spoil it, but this is my favorite one. I am obsessed with couples that are in business together. So
it's
actually, we've got a lot of friends now because it's such a weird and unique thing to happen and to actually still like each other. So we have like a solid group of us that get together a lot, and it's pretty funny because we're all very similar. And so, we can talk about this if you want to. But I think part of it is, being so wildly different. Eric and I are not the same in any way, shape, or form. And I think that is why it works. And this is the same for our friends too. It's so funny.
It's always the case that it works the best when there's a yin and the yang and the balance. Yeah. I mean, if you have two people that are both in the clouds, nothing works. So which one, before we jump into the story, who's grounded and who's the air balloon? Who's holding the rope and who's the hot air balloon?
I would say Eric's the hot air balloon. Well, he's the big idea guy. He's the big idea guy, and I'm the one putting everyone on payroll in an hour. So, that's it. And I love that because, we need that. And it's so funny. We have, some consultants and investors and advisors that we work with that are sort of the same way, the big ideas. And I mean, that's how we got here. We need that.
Exactly. And that's why we're all still in this industry. So real quick for you guys, give us kind of whichever one wants to go, kind of a cloud level overview about the business and what you guys do. And then I'll jump into your story, but at least everybody can get a snapshot about the products and the overview first.
Eric, you do this the best.
Sure. In 2017, Kristin and I had a crazy idea for a cannabis beverage brand. So my background is all consumer marketing. I'd worked with a bunch of blue chip advertisers and really had this idea of creating a brand that consumers would love. And when we looked at the landscape for what existed at the time for cannabis beverages, all of them were sodas and juices or teas and, really loaded with sugar and didn't necessarily align to the sort of lifestyle that we had. And so we started marching towards this idea of creating cannabis-infused seltzers, rooted in simple, all-natural ingredients with no sugar added, 0 calories that taste great. Living in Massachusetts, we have the benefit of having Polar Seltzer right in our backyard. We're able to sort of learn from everything they've done and establish their sort of stranglehold in the seltzer category. And we were very fortunate. We built the facility from the ground up, officially launched into the market in February of 2021. We very quickly got acquired. A year later, we got acquired by Our Wellness. At that time, I exited. Kristin stayed on to mind the store. Within a year, Kristin created the opportunity for us to buy the brand back. And we just closed on that 2 weeks ago to bring the brand back home.
Wow, congratulations.
So, we're really excited. So, our brand is really effects-based. It's effects forward. So we want to simplify things for consumers in the sort of brand architecture that we created. So we have Achieve, Celebrate, and Dream, which are effects-based products, then different flavors within each of the effects. Achieve is our get stuff done. Whether you're going to mow the lawn, do a bunch of laundry, have some tasks to complete, Achieve is the one that's going to be your best partner in crime for that. Celebrate is much more brighten everyone's day, the backyard barbecue. You're looking for a social lubrication where you can be social and upbeat, but you're not looking for alcohol. And then Dream is that sort of rest and recharge. You're looking to have date night on the couch. We'll have a drink on the couch, watch a movie, enjoy that. You sort of have that rest, recharge, and that laughter sort of built into that one. So within those, we then have 2 product lines that we mostly lean on. We've got the 0-calorie seltzers. And then we have a 0-calorie water-soluble drink infusion that we call drink drops that really empower consumers to make their own mocktails and dose to whatever their desire is. So our seltzers are all low dose to really reach, new and experienced consumers alike, depending on their dose. But our drink drops really provide the opportunity for higher dose beverages if you want to get creative. And you can also cook with them. They really integrate into food products as well. So those are sort of our products that we have to connect with consumers in the Massachusetts market and beyond.
I love the eyedropper part. I just want to make sure, because I have to make a joke about the tinctures and the drops. Is like, I'm somebody that, like, I love them because I love to be able to choose my base and everything like that. And when I'm out in bars and stuff, like, I got out with people in happy hour and they don't have any good non-alcoholic beers, and I'm kind of bored of Heineken Zero at this point or whatever.
Yep.
I love having those in my back pocket, and my girlfriend keeps some in her purse every once in a while. But my point with my joke is I appreciate the eye drops because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 250, and I'm heavy-handed on those squirt bottles. And there's times where I just can't get my doses right, but I can get an eye dropper every time.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well, let's go. Yeah, oh, go ahead. Yep.
I was just going to say the idea is to make it simple.
Yeah.
Cannabis can be really complicated for consumers with all the different strain name games in terms of what it is. So we're trying to make it as approachable as possible, so that depending on your dose, we're making it as clear of what that dose will be, to really avoid that overdose, experience that everyone's sort of had if they've ever had an edible brownie out of the oven and all that. So we're just trying to demystify and really empower consumers to feel trust with our brand, that every time they come to us, they know they're getting the same high quality product with predictable outcomes for them.
I've not told this story, and we're going to jump in your story in a second. When you said about the overdosages, I went to Colorado when they first went recreational, and I got a hotel walking distance from the dispensary. And I was like, I'm going to experience this. I've been a lifelong, advocate, lifelong this, and I got one. I think it was Snoop Dogg or one of those chocolate bars. And the lady at the place was like, just take one little piece. And I'm like, nah, I'm a big dude. I was drinking back then. I'm like, I can drink a case of beer. I can take a chocolate bar. 6 hours on the bed in the hotel with Law and Order marathon going, and I couldn't reach the remote to turn it off. So
We've all been there.
We've all been there, and that's my favorite story. But let's jump into you guys. So one of the things I've liked lately to jump way into it is I'll let Kristin go first, and I want to go back to senior year of high school, and I want to say 18, 19-year-old Kristin, did you ever envision this moment in 2026, right?
Oh my God, no. No. I didn't drink. I didn't use any kind of drugs in any way, shape, or form. And at the time, marijuana was still like, the devil. So of course not. Even when I got to college and started to learn a little bit more and understand, I had a couple of pretty bad experiences with some brownies where I was literally high for 12 hours. And even after that, not really understanding the options that were out there, and more of like, people growing weed in their bathtub. And so very indica heavy, body heavy. So no, absolutely not. I would never have expected to be here. I'm a therapist. This is what I spent, law and therapy were what I spent my time training as, I think even when we started this, I wouldn't have expected to be here.
Eric's about to tell me he had every plan in the world.
Yeah.
No, and not at all, actually. I was also a late bloomer on even trying cannabis. I didn't even try it until I was, 19, 20 in college. So yeah, as a senior in high school, absolutely not. Had not even tried it. For me, my entry point was really on the medicinal side. It didn't come till my late 20s when I was really suffering with some back spasms that wouldn't go away, and modern medicine really couldn't touch them. And someone introduced me to the idea of medical marijuana. And that was really my beginning. And even at that entry point, I would say, call it 10 years after high school, I still wouldn't have thought this is where I would have ended up.
So let's fast track then, you guys. What year? And I don't want to say give your age out or anything like that, but what year did you guys? How old were you guys when you connected?
We met in college, actually, on spring break.
Perfect. So, that makes it. Well, maybe you gave me that little linger there. So I might want to ask, where was spring break?
We were in the Bahamas, actually. And yeah, Kristin knew the three people I was with. I knew the three people she was with, but we hadn't met each other yet. We did not start dating till probably 2 years later after that.
Yeah.
Afterwards, but yeah, that was sort of when we met. So yeah, we've known each other a long time.
That's awesome.
At this point.
That's awesome. So when you guys are dating through college, you graduate college, you're down the therapy path. Where are you and Eric at this point in your career? At that point, like post college into where we're getting up.
I was working for a bunch of large ad agencies, working on blue chip clients. So around that time, I was working on brands like AT&T, the Home Depot, Goodyear, things like that, where I was working on their digital strategy, strategy and activation. So anything that happened in digital channels, I got to work on some really cool projects. The first ever, online March Madness bracket with CBS, helped, build that out and align AT&T, who was the customer at the time that I was representing. I also got to work on like the Home Depot when they made the transition from like, you can do it, we can help, to like more saving, more doing, and really like working through those transitions. And a lot of my career was focused on sort of either that massive change where you were looking to reposition an entire brand and still connect and not alienate consumers, or just really driving smart digital strategy for customer acquisition. So I sort of ended my career in advertising, really working within the financial category with brands like Bank of America and Fidelity and Liberty Mutual to drive, customer acquisition for their respective businesses.
What year was this business concept starting to bubble up, and what would take you through the scene, the environment, what's going on when the idea sparks and then the conversations begin as far as this venture?
But yeah, it was a bit of a slow build. Really, it started when we had our first daughter, who turns 13 this year. So, at that point, medical cannabis consumer, we have kids. Hey, we should smoke less. Like, that's a bad behavior. Immediately pivoted into making edibles to start, as a consumer. Realized my metabolism was slow as hell, and that it would take 2 to 3 hours for that like onset to happen. So I started researching cannabis under the premise of, why doesn't cannabis like water? Like, I was like, I know it's hydrophobic. What does it like? That led to ethanol. And I started making, very rudimentary tinctures. I didn't even know what a tincture was. I just sort of started making it at the time, and started dosing drinks. And, it tasted terrible. So I started making mocktails to like cover the flavor and all of that. And really, it sort of was this intersection, call it 2015 at this point, which was the intersection of like, we saw our entire friend group transition their behavior away from alcohol and into these cannabis mocktails that we were making. But the marketer in me said we needed to simplify it. Asking a consumer to buy a product like this, to dose themselves, to do that was going to be a lot for a consumer to do. Experienced consumers would likely do that, but if we're trying to attract new consumers, normalize, destigmatize, and really show that cannabis can be social in terms of this beverage format, the idea seemed obvious of like, we needed something ready to drink. We needed something that the consumer could grab a very cool, CPG oriented label style, so that it could be a conversation starter. We were very fortunate that, this was 2015, 2016, 2017, still getting laughed out of rooms talking about drinking cannabis. 2018, summer of White Claw. All of a sudden, a spike seltzer made sense to everybody. And then we were able to say, yes, okay, now you understand a spike seltzer, but you still have 80 to 120 calories in every drink. Ours is 0. We're going to be a 0-calorie adult beverage. And that really helped to kind of contextualize what we were doing and how we were going to be different, and also like fit into the space overall.
That was one of when I looked at your website before hopping on, it was one of the biggest draws, because I always tell people that hemp beverages that do self-regulate and follow procedures of label transparency and the QR codes of the COA is literally the most transparent, and I don't want to say anything of any health things, but one of the cleanest and transparent products that's on the shelf. And then I look at your website and I see the 0 calorie and the 0 sugar, and I'm like, well, we just went one step further into like, I don't understand why any adult would not want to participate in this. It checks every single box that everybody wants and everybody's looking for. Want to talk a little bit about Kristin, if on your end of things, do you, as far as the amount of states you guys are in, and kind of, are you guys just in Massachusetts at the moment and kind of looking to expand, or how do you guys kind of operate the back end of getting on the retail shelves and stuff?
So what's really exciting, I mean, difficult, but also exciting, is that our drink drops were in 5 other states with AIR. And as sort of, they had financial difficulties and sold off some states, we ended up with back in just Massachusetts. But because of that, I have tons of experience in these other states. So it's been really fun to sort of get back to basics, really focus on Massachusetts, but then move forward again. New Jersey is the next regulated state we're going to be in. And then we do have a hemp facility that we are moving forward with in Maine. Maine is a really fun state for cannabis, especially hemp. And we're really excited to do direct to consumer in states that don't have a regulated program.
What area of Maine are you guys going to be in?
We're in southern Maine. That's actually where I am right now, is at our main facility right now. So we're in Elliott, right next to Kittery, Maine. So it's about 30 minutes away from our regulated facility in Massachusetts. So we're really fortunate that we found a spot and leverage the same operational team as we're getting things underfoot for us. And yeah, I'm really excited to really be able to just start distributing this product to a much broader audience.
My aunt lived in Maine for a long time, and so we used to go up there for the summers and stuff out in Poland Springs and in that area.
Yes.
And,
Nice.
Lewiston, I think it was the other.
Yeah.
Lived for a while.
That's
Yeah,
pretty southern, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right around
Yeah.
outside. I think it's like 45 minutes outside Poland, maybe, or Portland or something like that.
Yeah.
But I love that area, and I love it in the summertime and the winter and the fall. But I went there on a recruit. I was recruited for wrestling by University of Southern Maine, and so I went there in January. And
that's a terrible time to
I
go.
love the coach. I love the team. My dad and I walked out, and there was just a tundra, and he's like, "I'm like, if these guys were anywhere else in the country, I'd be in." But I said, "I can't do it." I felt bad, but it was that is a wicked place in the wintertime, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about kind of your guys' role in the industry and things like that. How have you guys, now this is something where both of you guys are a married couple, and we're not taking this from a victimhood standpoint when it comes down to the regulations and the confusion and the chaos and the noise that's going on. But how have you guys persevered and continue to keep the momentum going with that weight in your business and your home?
Patience. A lot of patience. And I what I said earlier, I think is really important, is knowing that we have wildly different skill sets. I came into this, and quite frankly, I never expected to be a CEO. What I expected to do was help break the stigma. That was so important to me. I mean, I saw people die of opioids and fentanyl, specifically fentanyl, when they were using cannabis to get off of this, and they couldn't get it, or they couldn't get into rehabs because they were using cannabis, which was just insane to me. And so using my experience has been really great in helping to shape policy, and being a beverage manufacturer and in the regulated industry gives us a platform for that, which has been really great. So after leaving AIR and sort of having that platform as well, is like, hey, we're independent again, and being able to get out there and talk about this, I think, is so important.
I think we really connect with parenting audiences as well, right? We have 3 kids. So like the fact that this is our business and we work together, of just asking the basic question of like, what do you tell your kids? Like, how do you educate your kids, right? And that's where it's like, sometimes it's as simple as saying, well, your kids know not to get into your liquor cabinet. Your kid knows that you have beer and wine in the fridge. So like, we're putting those types of drink, a drink format in there that they know. And for many years, for the first 5 years we were in, we also would add the child resistant tops as an extra step to go to that, until the state kind of told us it was overkill. That added significant costs to us, but it felt like it was important as we were getting the brand awareness out there of like, this is safe. We also don't want kids to have it, right? So I think us being parents, being able to help educate other parents on how to talk to their children, so that we have a more educated audience, growing up, and saying like, yeah, we don't want young kids to have this as well. The same way you educate them on beer and wine, educate them on our product, as we grow this industry. And that way, when you're in a social setting, you can have one of these the same way. When you light up and smoke, you got to remove yourself from that situation. You got to go, to another spot. So, hey, this enables you to really start to normalize what this experience is without the hangover, without the negative effects. And really, with Kristin's background in substance abuse, being an authority on that, of like, this is safe. This is something that can be done. This is plant medicine at the end of the day, that we're using a recreational platform to really spread that message, to destigmatize and normalize.
I'll touch on to both points where you guys, like for my personally, it's I went to rehab. Like I got a DUI many years ago, and then had a court mandated rehab, which was the funniest thing, because the judge was like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I told him I sold alcohol, and he's like, "Well, and then he just sent me right to rehab." I'm like, "You didn't even." There was no basis of my history. Now, granted, I needed to go, but it was one of those things where his decision was funny, but it didn't work. And Kristin, to your point, it didn't work for the sense that I didn't have a bridge. And I wasn't able to just go cold turkey, and I wasn't able to just I did a 12-week program, and it still didn't stick. And I was stubborn as hell, but it wasn't until I got to have the bridge of these products. Now, in the same sense, I'm going to say this to everybody. That's not to say everybody's built like this. I just happen to be built in a way that I needed a bridge. There are other people that need cold turkey and need that all, need the isolation and need the weekly meetings, and that's not me. My journey is different. But I want to say I appreciate what you're saying about that, because also my therapist was one of the ones that suggested this to me. So it was really helpful because I came to him and he was my fifth therapist. Nobody was working. And then all of a sudden I landed a recovering alcoholic as a therapist, and that was it. He understood me, I understood him, and the path was off to the races. But also to your point, Eric, it's we were talking to Chris Fontes a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys know him with High Spirits. Yeah, so we were talking about this exact same thing, and it was really funny because he brought it up as like, people ask him all the time. They're like, "Well, what do you guys do? You lock everything up?" And he's like, "What do you lock up your bourbon?" He's like, "Your bourbon's sitting right on your desk. Your glass is here. It's in your drawer." Like, it's asinine and insane in 2026 that question is still being asked, because regardless of what you believe of the product and the plant and reefer madness and devil's lettuce and all that stuff, let's all be really frank. And I sell alcohol, and everybody in the alcohol industry knows I'm going to say what I'm going to say. One's an escape and one is presence, and both are harmful to your children. And they're equally harmful to your children. One, you've seen around yourself your whole life and it's been in front of you, so it's normalized. The other one is new and scary because you grew up thinking it was going to kill you and fry your brain like eggs in a pan with a dairy commercial. Yeah. Which, by the way, I just got a notification my new Dare shirts just landed, so I'll be rocking those.
I have a couple too.
I think I might wear one to the hill climb next week in DC. We'll see. But yes, the normalization is important. And we have a blended family of 11, 14, 15, and 20. And the 20-year-old is very curious about it, but not in a curious way of like he wants it. He actually doesn't want it at all. But he's curious because he sees what I've been doing the past couple of years, what it's done to my life. And my kids, my 14 and 15-year-old, again, the curiosity there is for them because they saw a completely horrible person for many years up until I finally quit. And now they see this whole other thing, and they're just like, this is something that's it's not that they want it. It's not that, because I've also instilled in them the discipline that you got to be 21 years old. I'm not one of those parents that's like 16 years old, just come to my house and that's not me. And it's one of those things where like it is locked up and it is in a separate place because it's not a trust thing, but it's just it's a curiosity thing. And if they're my children and I know the way I grew up, I was a curious kid and I experimented on things all throughout my life, and I was a hot stove, touch it 3 times kind of guy. And they're my blood, so I'm going to lock it up for them as much as I can. Yeah. But also I appreciate the education piece. And I know some parents will feel uncomfortable about this because, whatever, but let's be honest. If you're going in the garage and you're smoking and then you're coming back in your house, your kids, no matter what age they are, they know that smell. And if you take that gummy and you think you're hiding it, they know what your breath smells like. For us to pretend and not, the problem is the confusion begins when you aren't just open. And I'm going to say that I'm not trying to give parenting advice to anybody, but with this specific topic, if you're open with them, it won't make more confusion for them later. And when the situation does arise and they are handed that joint or they are handed that gummy, because in today's world, they are going to be handed that way earlier than we were. And when they have that, they can acknowledge and recognize what it is and know in their parents' heads and their voice and says, that's not for me yet.
Yeah.
Like, the day will come, but it's not right now. But if you don't say anything and that kid says to them, hey, this is really fun, man. This is really fun. And then all of a sudden, I want parents to really hear what I'm about to say. They smell that because it's it's a neurogastronomy and a sensory experience. And they smell that. And you never spent the time to talk to them. That's a correlation of sensory that they're going to memorize and be like, oh, my mom smells like that. And this smells like this. So it must be okay. So I'm going to do it. Because you didn't take the time to detach that sensory experience to an actual educational moment.
Yeah.
And I really want that to kind of close in on this part of the parenting, because I know I'm going to get comments from people being like, you're fucking crazy telling your kid. I'm like, no, you're crazy for not, and letting your kids see that it's a positive, okay thing at an everyday, all day thing. And then they're going to have their own experience. So again, I will judge parents on that end if you want to pretend like it's not something to say.
Well,
yeah,
sorry, Eric, you can go.
I was just going to share a story about our son. He's 11, right? And, we started this in 2017, he was 2. So he's known this his whole life. Like, he has grown up with this, with understanding that we're consumers. And while everything I do is to not smoke as much, to use our drink drops, to use RSO, to use all the different options that are alternatives, but I still do smoke, it's sort of in those rescue moments. There was one time where I was doing something in the garage not smoking. And I, went out, did what I needed to do and came in. And, our son said, "Oh, hey, where were you?" And I was like, "Oh, I was just, organizing blah, blah, blah in the garage." And he just goes, "Oh, I thought you were smoking cannabis." And it was so normal to him. And in the moment, I was shocked. I was like, "Oh my God, what did he think of me?" But then he was just like, no, it was normal to him. It wasn't this weird thing. He was just asking if that's what I was doing because he knows that it's something that I use as medicine to help with my ADHD, to help with these spasms and all that. So even though initially I was on my heels, I was like, "Oh wait, no, this is actually a beautiful moment." He's like associating that it's normal to him that this happens, but he does know it's not for him. He has no interest. He doesn't have that curiosity as an 11-year-old. He does talk about it. When I'm older, will I be able to try that? Absolutely. And he loves when we have regular seltzers uninfused in our flavors. He feels so fun, drinking those. But to this day, no matter what, they pull one of our drinks out of the fridge. We have huge labels that say no THC. It'll say no THC. He still turns to us and he's like, "This doesn't have cannabis in it, right?" "Correct, buddy. You're good to go." And that education is there.
That's exactly our I have a whole sampling rack in the garage, and like it's all the alcohol and the THC, and then there's other stuff in there's separate rooms from the soda and the drinks and all that. And it's exactly that. It's like the black shelf is no go. And then everybody knows the black shelf, and I have everything color coded and everything. So there's no confusion at all, visually or audibly. Kristin, you were going to say something there.
Yeah, I think this is such an important topic because this is an industry unlike any of us are ever going to see again in our lifetime. Something that has been used for, hundreds of thousands of years that is now sort of coming back into mainstream and being able to shape the conversation around how we talk about this in public, how we talk about this with our children. I feel really strongly that it's really important to be very open about this and to accept the bad and the good. I'm never going to say to my kids, like, this is something that you should have before you're 21. Like we all, there is enough research out there to know that there are probably going to not be great effects. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm hoping that they don't pick up that whiskey and that they grab something out that's something with cannabis in it, if that is going to be a choice that they make. But at the same time, I hope that we've been open enough. I mean, there's also plenty of research out there to suggest that the more open you are with your kids around any substance, it will be easier for them to talk to you, and the outcomes are always better because they're going to be honest with you. If you shut down anything, or if you shut down talk of weed being bad in any way, shape, or form, it hurts the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a blatant lie, and I think it's a devaluation of your own child because your children are smarter than you think.
Yeah,
especially when it comes to this stuff. Like, we have to remember, like, they're growing up. We didn't grow up. I mean, we probably look like we're about the same age. We grew up and we didn't have the For You page pushing ads into us every day. It was whatever the guy in the corner, like as we were walking down the street, coaxed us into some house or whatever to go. But it's like these kids, it's at their fingertips, it's in their pockets. Honest with ourselves and realize whether we talked about it or not, they've been exposed to it 16 times a day before they even had lunch. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and that's a whole different ball game. And it's like, for me personally with my kids, I feel like that among many things was really into their teens, opening up, being open about that and being open about what I do and having them see it as a sense of pride and not a sense of embarrassment, and not for my ego, but for their own selves to be able to understand fully what I do. It wasn't me saying, "Be proud of me." It was like me explaining what I do, the importance of it, the regulations and the education of it. And then in turn, organically, they're like, "Oh shit. Like, Dad's more than just making TikTok videos." You know what I mean? Like, Dad's doing real things, and it's for everybody. And I think my kids especially, they listen and watch the podcast and stuff like that. So they're going to love this part of the conversation because they always get themselves caught in situations where they openly talk about it and other people are not as comfortable about it. And I'll give you one where I think it was my daughter was asked, like, they do the thing in class, like when she was younger, where it's like, "What's your parents do for a living?"
Yeah, we got that in the first DARE class. My daughter came home in a DARE shirt, and I was like, "Oh my God, we didn't talk about this before this happened." Yeah. And I go, what did you say? She goes, "Oh, I just told them you guys have a cannabis company." There does. I mean, this was just recently, so clearly there is a better storyline that goes along with that in Dare, that I'm at least where it is, where we are in New England, where it's talked about as medicine and not something that you should be using recreationally before you're 21. So I was very pleased with that, but I definitely had a moment of panic of like, oh no, what's going to happen when you tell them that this is the family you come from?
Well, I'll tell you what mine did is she repeated what I said.
I love
I
that.
don't say it this way anymore. Was when people ask what I did for a living, I would always be like, booze and weed, I'm in the vices business. And my daughter is a product of me, and she said in the same tone, the same proudness. My dad sells booze and weed, he's in the vices business. And the whole hush over the classroom. Anyway, that was the opening for me to explain everything better. Take me, before we got about 10 more minutes or so, take me through the name and the branding, and give me kind of the backstory of where you guys landed there, and kind of that way the audience and consumers, as well as distributors and retailers, kind of understand the intention behind where you guys did the messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. When we started, it was this idea as a brand marketer that we're coming out of Prohibition, right? So like, what was that time in alcohol, right? And what were sort of some of the brands that were birthed out of that time period? So for us, we really wanted to be colorful. We wanted to be bright. We wanted to be clean design, right? Really focusing on more of something that you would see on a supermarket shelf or a liquor store shelf. We were intentionally not using traditional cannabis imagery, the leaves and things like that. And again, from an archetype perspective, we really wanted to simplify. We thought that, think the strain name game can be confusing, as there's all these different strains, cross-hybridization, everything going on. So we wanted to sort of position of like, we did the work for you. We're going to simplify this for you. And that's really where Achieve, Celebrate, and Dream were born, as sort of the effects that we wanted to focus on, similar to sativa, hybrid, and indica, when we're sourcing that. And from us as a brand, we're really focused on the simple all natural ingredients. We extract our oil, we process it into being water soluble, we make all the drinks and say all of that. In terms of the name, we actually had a different name for a long time. And we were, as former marketers, recovering marketers, we had done a good job of generating some pre-market buzz around what we were doing as we were trying to get to market. There was another license holder that was also trying to solve the beverage problem and get there, saw us coming, and put out a product quickly. They were already licensed at the time, put out a product with essentially our same name. And then, made a batch, sold part of the batch, whatever, and then, basically hit us with a cease and desist of, this is confusingly similar to what we're doing. So, the name that we had prior sort of was a snowball name. It started early days when we were just doing stuff in our kitchen and above our garage and all of that. And then when we moved into the ready to drink, didn't necessarily feel like it fit per se. It had really grown, but everyone sort of loved it and it was rolling off everybody's tongue. So we just sort of stuck with it. So it was a 4-letter word. And when we got hit with that cease and desist, we had built that brand architecture so that it was brand and effect, right? And then the license entity was a whole separate name in itself, so that since we had limitations in terms of what we can protect in the cannabis industry, since it's federally illegal, you can't get the same trademark protections. So we knew we just needed to sort of swap out the name to better align with sort of the key brand tenets that we were sort of creating. So we ended up doing a really fun exercise that people still talk about. We just got a note about this actually, where, we did a naming exercise. We came up with, call it 10, 20 names that we put out. We were so close to launch, we had already pre-sold our entire first 6 batches that we had made. So we put a survey out to everybody in the industry that we had connected with and let them vote and participate on a name to see what they liked. We culled that down to, I think, 8 to 10 names. Then as a group brought it down to 5, handed it off to an attorney and said, which of these is the most defensible in this moment? There were 2, and Levia was the clear winner. It really aligned with that lightness, that uplifting effect, that sort of elevated experience tagline that we have to really connect with consumers. That is really how we ended up there, was in a true marketer's format of like, okay, we just need to make something that fits with the brand, is defensible, and really can shine for us as a brand in the market in this new segment that we were trying to cover.
With your history, I was very confident in asking that question. That I was going to get a scientific response. It wasn't a dartboard and a post-it note.
Yeah.
The I appreciate the name, and I appreciate like what you guys also put on the cans. And I know you talked about it in the beginning, but I want people to kind of, as you're looking at the can and you're on the website, looking at the fact of you pointing it out on the can as well. And it's not like you said about it's not some stylistic thing where it's like OG Kush and who knows what that means. You know, we know what that means, but a regular consumer isn't. But the most important thing is, as we kind of close out this, is I want to touch on the regulation piece. And you brought up something that I actually forgot about in all these conversations about. I always talk about, without regulation federally, there's no access to banking, so there's no loans. And I compare this to the craft beer boom of 2010 to 2017. And I tell people, I'm like, this could be bigger if they actually had access to banks, they had access to insurance, they didn't have to live their life scared that the bank was just going to decide that day we were going to freeze their accounts and do an investigation and an audit, which you pass, but it would just take 6 to 12 months of your time. And the last piece I always forget about, and I appreciate you just brought it up, is the trademark. And I didn't even think about that at all. That the fact is that at any moment that could happen. You know, you could not have a defensible, or somebody could come in and do the same exact thing, just have more money than you, and then win based on that merit that they could drain you with lawyers. So I want to kind of ask you guys, like, where, let me rephrase what I'm trying to say here. With the regulations the way they are and being something, why is it so? Is that the importance of regulations to you guys? And I want you guys to talk about how important it is to get this passed and to get things federally as well as whatever states you need to be in. I agree that we need to be at a place, and I'm obviously here in Pennsylvania doing our same thing, and we'll be in DC in a couple of weeks doing the same thing again. Talk about what it is for you to be regulated and how you don't want to be in this cowboy Wild West crazy melee that we're in,
Research brings legitimacy. And I think that is so huge. And I'm so excited because we've already got Blue Cross Blue Shield at the table. We've already got all these providers who, on the face it's a capitalist society, right? Everyone wants to make money, but they also want to save money from all the opioid issues that we're having and all the alcohol issues that we're having. And it has been very clear that, at least anecdotally and from research in other countries, that there is a huge missing place for cannabis to fill. And all the cannabinoids that we're really just at the tip of the iceberg figuring out. I'm so excited. I mean, Charlotte's Web, we've seen these documentaries, and there's been research for years, and yet we are. We're still dealing with this. I think, moving to Schedule 3 at least gives us some legitimacy. I mean, we live in Massachusetts. We've got Harvard, we've got MIT, we've got Northeastern, we've got BC, we've got BU, we've got all these great research universities. And I am so excited about what is going to come from that, and allowing them to get federal money and take private money, because they weren't even allowed to take that before, or else they'd lose other federal grants. So allowing people to do legitimate research is going to be huge. And I'm really, really excited about that. And then, of course, banking. Eric and I have been cut off from American Express. We've been cut off from a bunch of different places. And one was for my personal private practice, nothing to do with cannabis, just the association. And there's no comeback from that. You can't fight it. So having legitimate banking, when we are a legitimate state by state industry, is so important. And, you can't go bankrupt when you are not a federally recognized business. And so that has really caused a lot of people issues as well. I mean, we've seen some great businesses go under because of that, and that's really hard.
Yeah, it's really wild, even from the service side of things. Like I don't produce products or transact products. I charge rev shares of work done and all this stuff. And I've had to go through multiple, I'm not going to name their names or anything like that, but it's like multiple point of sale systems for invoice processing, and I don't even sell the stuff. And I get it from that, or they hold on to my funds for 30 days and do an audit of where the money's coming from. And that has happened a lot more frequently. That it's gotten actually really frustrating the past 6 months. It's increased the withholding, where it's like you'll get paid, and all of a sudden it's 30, 45 days before I actually get activated the money.
My suspicion is that right now it's getting tighter because we're getting so close, or that's my hope.
I think they're trying to assess the baseline of activity in order to bring in the regulation. I think that's where the audits are kicking in, because it started shortly after November, and then the past couple of months it's been every single invoice payment is held for like 30, 45 days. Yeah. But So kind of closing out and everything like that, I'm definitely going to have you guys on again we're going to do some roundtables this year and stuff like that, as well as we're going to do some fun stuff when we launch the Pennsylvania hemp bill. We want to get founders from the industry to, do some different things and stuff like that. So I'll invite you guys back for that. But in closing, just kind of remind everybody the brand name, the website, and then social media handles, LinkedIn, all that stuff.
Kristin Rogers from Levia, and it's www.levia.buzz.
Eric Rogers from Levia, and we can be found on Instagram at Levia Brands.
Perfect. Well, hey guys, I'm looking forward to this. I will send you guys an email as well to talk about Pennsylvania specific stuff. But this has been awesome. And thank you guys for signing up and doing this. And I want to close out and publicly tell you guys, not just was this awesome, but there was no questions and there's no script. And this is just an organic conversation. So I want to remind everybody, we've never met. We are complete strangers. And in 2026, I need everybody, and the world needs everybody, to understand that you can connect with strangers. You just saw us connect in 50 minutes. We're laughing. We're talking about our kids. Like, we don't even know anything about each other other than what we just talked about. And that's all that matters, because we found common ground. We made friends. And now we're going to end up having a relationship moving forward with this. And I need everybody to understand, when you're walking down the street, look a stranger in the eye, hold a door for somebody. When you're at a gas station, filling up your coffee, look to the guy or girl next to you, ask them how they're doing, and actually shut up and listen to what they say and care. Because more often than you guys think, there's a lot of people that really feel lonely right now. And if just a little conversation can take things a long way. So while we talked about fun hemp stuff and THC, the underlying lesson for all these podcasts that we do is just to please treat people like human beings and stop being a piece of shit out there, and put some positive stuff out in the world. So Kristin and Eric, thank you guys for the courage to come on with no questions and no scripts, because I get a lot of rejection emails from people that they don't get questions.
No, I love this.
Exactly. But it's a testament to you guys and your authenticity, because you know your stuff. You have a place of principle and passion in which you work, and you can hop on a cold podcast and no big deal. So thank you guys so much for your time today and telling your story.
No, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Bye.